Okay, basta may marinig lang tayo sa ating sound. Okay, okay lang mga suki, mga kababayan, no? Ayan. So, papasok tayo sa programa. Okay, ang time check natin, 58 po, minutos pasado alas 6. Okay, gabi ng Friday, gabi ng Biyernes, 12 po ng Enero 2023 ang programa natin, no? Okay, so naka-intro na tayo. Okay, dito naman tayo sa Consolidated News natin. Okay, sa gabi nito. Okay, good evening. Magandang gabi sa inyo. Okay, kumusta kayo? Okay, sa universal greeting natin, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, no? Ayan. So dito naman tayo sa programa Halo-Halo Special, opinion, balita at iba pa. Kasama po serbisyo publiko, tinig ng mamamayan. Pati na rin sumbungan ng mamamayan, no? Okay, dito po sa ADLSNTV International. Okay. Ang unang marinig natin yung Big Bang. Okay, sa Southern Yemen. Okay, mga suki, no? Okay, ayon po rito sa balita, ay combination po ng US at saka UK po magsabay. Okay, para hulog po ng bomba po sa area na yan, mga suki, no? So, sigurado naman, gulo naman na iyan. Okay, patuloy naman po ang kaguluhan po dyan sa mga area, no? So, ang binangga ng Amerika at saka itong UK, pumalan po ni Rishi Sunak at saka ni Joe Biden ay itong mga Houthis group, mga suki, no? Okay, dahil po dyan po, okay, sa Red Sea. Okay, sa Red Sea po, mga kababayan, dahil yung mga international ship, yung mga vapor magdala ng mga langis, mga goods, ay hinaharangan po ng mga grupo ito, mga suki. Di umano, no? Allegedly. Para safe tayo, mga suki, no? Kasi malayo tayo, kumukuha lang tayo ng feed, okay, ng mga kasamahan natin sa international news. Okay, ito ang makuha natin sa ABS News. Okay, sa Sanaa, ito ng Sanaa, no? Okay, sa bansang Yemen, mga suki, no? Pakinggan natin po ang paliwanag ng kapwa natin tagapamahayan. Ito na lang ang chance natin makarinig ng mga ganito. Okay, dahil po meron pa po tagapagbalita, no? Kung wala nang tagapagbalita, wala na tayong makuha balita, mga suki, no? Okay, mga kababayan natin dito sa Mbuanga, 98 barangays, buenas noches kaninyo tanan, no? Kaninyo tanan. Pakinggan natin unang salvo, okay, ng Big Bang, bombing po ng okay, pinakawalan ng American submarine daw, no? Di umano. Allegedly, sabi po ng tagapagbalita ito, no? Galing po sa submarine. Okay. So, sige.
Coming up on SBS World News, the US and UK launch airstrikes against Houthi rebel targets in Yemen. The Australian government insists joining the action wasn't an easy decision, as South Africa puts allegations of genocide in Gaza at the UN's top court, a claim rejected by Israel. Good evening. Tonight, our coverage focuses on the situation in Yemen. Earlier today, the US and UK carried out airstrikes against Houthi targets inside the country. US President Joe Biden said he had personally ordered the strikes. The US-led coalition says it hit more than 60 targets in 16 locations. Australian personnel are among those supporting the operation. The US and UK are promising there will be more retaliation if the rebel group's attacks in the Red Sea continue. Britain says the Houthis' ability to continue firing on ships in the Red Sea has taken a blow. But a short time ago, the Iran-backed Houthi group said attacks on shipping would continue. There have been no immediate reports of casualties from Yemen.
Sona, 2:30 a.m. Dogs howling. Explosions shaking the city. British Typhoon jets taking off from Cyprus, joining US forces to strike Houthi targets, including logistical hubs, air defense systems, and weapons storage facilities. The US president confirming the strikes were carried out at his direction, with support from the Netherlands, Canada, Bahrain, and Australia, saying these strikes are in direct response to unprecedented Houthi attacks against international maritime vessels in the Red Sea, including the use of anti-ship ballistic missiles for the first time in history. I will not hesitate to direct further measures to protect our people and the free flow of international commerce as necessary. Before the strikes, the Houthis had promised a retaliation larger than any of their attacks to date if the US carried out strikes on its soil.
لن نتردد إن شاء الله في فعل كل ما نستطيع وسنواجه العدوان الأمريكي. أي اعتداء أمريكي لن يبقى أبدا بدون رد، والرد لن يكون فقط بمستوى العملية التي نفذت أخيرا استهداف الأمريكيين في البحر.
Saudi Arabia, which had been hopeful of reaching a peace deal with the Houthis after almost a decade of conflict, said it was following the developments with great concern and called for restraint.
Well, Yemen is one of the poorest countries and the least developed countries in the region, and the Houthis have got a limited military capability. So perhaps the position of the Houthis should not be over-exaggerated, but the serious risk of escalation is there, simply because that there are too many actors involved in the region and they're all hostile to one another.
The Red Sea is one of the world's most critical waterways. Since November 19, the Houthis have launched 27 drone and missile attacks on its shipping lanes. They claim to be targeting ships with links to Israel as a response to Israel's bombing of Gaza, but many have had no discernible connection to the country. Their largest attack came just 2 days ago, when both the US and UK said their ships were directly targeted. The US says crews from more than 20 nations have also been directly threatened or taken hostage by the Houthis, including the 25-person crew of the Japan-operated Galaxy Leader. Today, another ship was hijacked. In the Gulf of Oman, armed Iranian commandos seized an oil tanker and its 15-person crew bound for Turkey. Tehran says it took it in retaliation for the US seizing the same tanker and its oil last year.
I would put little stock in anything coming out of Tehran. This was a commercial vessel, freely transiting international waters. No justification whatsoever to seize it. None whatsoever. They need to let it go.
Tonight, relative calm has returned to Yemen, but it's unlikely to last. The Houthis say the US and UK will soon realise today's strikes were, quote, the greatest folly in their history. Claudia Farhat, SBS World News.
Let's bring in our Chief International Correspondent, Ben Lewis, who joins us tonight from London. Ben, good evening to you. Why do you think the US and UK have decided to act now?
Well, good evening, Anton. To put it simply, they had run out of patience. For weeks now, the coalition of nations had been warning the Houthis to stop attacking commercial shipping vessels in the Red Sea, but the attacks continued, and the UK and the US wanted to show that their red lines are indeed red. The British Prime Minister in the last few minutes has described the airstrikes as limited but significant, and pointing out that the strikes took place away from large population centres. Now, Iran, which of course supplies the Houthis with both weapons and intelligence, has, as expected, criticised these airstrikes, warning they could lead to further escalation of tensions across the Middle East. Now, that is true to a degree, but at the same time, the US and the UK have taken a bit of a gamble here. They believe that Tehran does not want to get directly involved, and any blowback is going to be limited. We have already heard from the Houthis saying that they will be retaliating, and so, Anton, it is unlikely that these airstrikes are going to be a one-off. And keep in mind that the Houthis quite like taking on a larger, more powerful opponent. The Saudis started airstrikes against them in Yemen some 8 years ago, and that conflict continues.
Thanks, Ben. That's Ben Lewis updating us live from London. Let's get more now on Australia's role. Federal political reporter Finn McHugh joins us now live from Canberra. Finn, good evening to you. As we're reporting, Australia has confirmed it was one of 4 countries providing support for these airstrikes. What, if anything, do we know about this involvement?
Good evening, Anton. Well, questions remain still about the extent of Australia's support for this operation and what its intentions are if these strikes prove to be just the first of many launched by its allies, the US and the UK. Now, Defence Minister Richard Marles was out in Geelong to discuss the incident today, but he was remaining pretty tight-lipped on exactly when Australia's AUKUS partners informed it that these strikes would occur, and he also wouldn't reveal exactly how many Australian personnel were involved.
These are very important actions. The actions that have been taken today, supported by Australia, are about maintaining freedom of navigation on the high seas. They are about maintaining global trade. And that is completely central to Australia's national interest.
Now, as we heard earlier from Ben, there have been a number of warnings to the Houthis about their actions in the Red Sea over the last few weeks, and Australia joined those. But these strikes come just a few weeks after Australia actually opted not to send a warship to join a US-led patrol fleet in the Red Sea. That's despite a direct request from Washington. Now, the coalition was fairly bullish in its criticism of the government for that decision. It repeated that criticism today.
It's a hugely important economic issue for the world, as well as obviously a global security issue. But this government, the best they can do is stand up and offer a handful of people and some words and rhetoric.
And Finn, in a bigger picture sense, is the government concerned about this conflict spreading?
Well, that's the question that's been looming over this conflict over the last few months, really, whether what started as a contained, albeit very violent conflict could morph into a full-blown regional war, and what Australia's role in that conflict could prove to be. Now, Richard Marles, again, was quite wary of discussing whether these strikes could exacerbate the threat of a regional power, particularly Iran, getting involved in the conflict. But that threat is going to have to be front of mind for Foreign Minister Penny Wong later this month, when she travels not just to Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories, but also to Qatar and Egypt, 2 countries that have played a key role in the mediation process over the last few months. Anton?
Thanks, Finn. That's Finn McHugh updating us live from Canberra. Well, for more on this, I've been speaking to Hisham Al-Omezi, who's the senior Yemen advisor with the Brussels-based, privately funded European Institute of Peace. Hisham Al-Omezi, tell us what you think the effects of these airstrikes are likely to be.
Well, the airstrikes, they've targeted 60 targets and 16 locations across several cities. The goal of the coalition is to deter the Houthis from attacking ships in the Red Sea. That's not going to happen. In fact, this is actually going to infuriate the Houthis. This is going to anger them. They've been waiting for this opportunity to escalate, to gain legitimacy and regional recognitions. So they'll definitely attack back.
So how do you see that developing? I mean, how serious could the situation get? I mean, it's already pretty dire.
They played right into the Houthis' game. The Houthis wanted to drag international community, the states, into the conflict. They managed to do that, and it's become serious now in the sense that it is no longer centralized. It is no longer in the Red Sea. It had spilled over all land in Yemen, and it's going to drag other actors into play. You may have now Hezbollah attacking. You might have Hezbollah, the Iraq branch, might attack also U.S. bases. It has the potential to escalate really quickly now.
Okay, Hisham Alamezi, thank you so much for that perspective.
Thank you, Antoine, for having me.
South Africa has asked the UN's highest court to order an emergency suspension of Israel's military campaign in Gaza, accusing the country of genocide nurtured at the highest levels of state. Within hours, Israel will present its defense. It rejects the allegation of genocide, describing the claim as outrageous, false, and baseless.
Rival protests outside the International Court of Justice and opposing views. And that the international community is failing the people of Gaza.
Despite the horror of the genocide against the Palestinian people being live streamed from Gaza to our mobile phones, computers, and television screens, the first genocide in history where its victims are broadcasting their own destruction in real time in the desperate, so far vain hope that the world might do something.
South Africa is seeking to prove not just that genocide is occurring, which Israel strongly denies, but that there is genocidal intent.
It is systematic in its character and form. The mass displacement of the population of Gaza, headed into areas where they continue to be killed, and the deliberate creation of conditions that, quote, lead to a slow death, unquote. The intent to destroy Gaza has been nurtured at the highest levels of state.
A claim rejected by Israel.
אנחנו נלחמים במחבלים ואנחנו נלחמים בשקרים. היום שוב ראינו עולם הפוך. מדינת ישראל מואשמת ברצח עם בשעה שהיא נלחמת ברצח עם.
South Africa wants the court to order an emergency suspension of Israel's operation in Gaza. A ruling would be legally binding, but not enforceable.
We believe that without the intervention of this court, the international community, we will see the total destruction of the Palestinian people in Gaza.
Tonight, Israel will present its case, rejecting the accusation of genocide and accusing South Africa of functioning as the legal arm of Hamas.
We are in a war with Hamas, in a war in which we have to protect our citizens. It's not only our obligation, it's also our right.
Several relatives of Israelis being held hostage in Gaza have travelled to The Hague. They accuse South Africa of ignoring the acts of Hamas on October 7.
People are talking about what Israel is doing, but Hamas is committing crimes against humanity every day, that everybody and the rest of the hostages are there.
With little electricity and unreliable internet access, it's hard for Gazans to follow what's happening in the courtroom. But there's hope judges will help improve their situation.
أنا بقول لنحن الجماعات الدولية حلوة من حل كل يوم كتب كل يوم موت كل يوم دم شوف عصرين توقف الحرب.
A ruling on potential emergency measures to stop the war could be made later this month, but a decision on the question of genocide could take years. Ben Lewis, SBS World News.
That's the world this Friday. If you're in Australia, head to SBS On Demand for more news and analysis. For viewers across the globe, subscribe to stay up to date with the latest stories from Australia and around the world. I'm Anton Enos from the SBS World News team. Thanks for watching.
Okay. So mag-break muna tayo, hanap po ng kasunod, no? Ayan. Yan po ang latest po nangyari po sa Sanaa, Yemen, no? Sanaa po ang kapital ng Yemen. So, 60. Okay, bomba po pinasabog po ng combination po ng US at saka UK, mga kababayan, no? 60 bomb. Okay, pinasabog po sa southern Sana'a, Yemen, mga suki, no? So, wala pang reported na casualty. Okay, dyan po pagpasabog na yan. Okay, mag-aantay tayo ng update. Okay, mga tagapakinig natin. Magmamahal sa programa natin. Okay? Sa buong daigdig, mga suki, no? Ayan. Okay, so sandali lang. Ano po ang ibalita natin ulit, no? Okay, reaction po ang sa mga ground. Okay, itong mga citizen po ng mga Yemeni. Okay, pakinggan natin, no? Okay, pakinggan natin mga reaction. Okay, sa kasalukuyan kaguluhan po diyan sa bansa nila, no?
The United States and Britain have carried out military strikes against targets in Yemen in retaliation for Houthi rebel attacks on shipping in the Red Sea. The Houthis and the group's backer Iran have condemned the strikes. The US and the UK say the action is aimed at protecting international trade routes.
One by one, American military aircraft take off. Part of a coordinated strike back against Yemen's Houthi rebels in retaliation for attacks on shipping in the Red Sea. Led by the US and Britain, in a statement, a total of 10 countries described the mission as an act of collective self-defense. US officials say more than a dozen sites were attacked, including command centers and munition depots used by the Houthi group, with these unverified images broadcast on Houthi television claiming to show explosions and the apparent aftermath at unknown locations. Ahead of the strikes, the Houthi supreme leader had this warning: "We will not hesitate to do everything we can, and any American aggression will never go unanswered. The response to any American attack will not be at the level of the operation that was recently carried out, with 24 drones and several missiles, but rather much greater." Houthi forces have been targeting ships in the Red Sea for weeks, with the group releasing this footage in November of its fighters appearing to seize a vessel. It claims the attacks are in response to Israel's war in Gaza against Hamas, whom the US, EU and other countries have labelled a terrorist organisation. The big question now is how the Houthi leadership and their backers in Iran will now respond to this international show of force, and what this now means for the war in Gaza, a war that the US and others have been desperately trying to contain.
Let's get more with Frank Ledvich. He is a senior lecturer in strategic studies at Portsmouth University and a former British military intelligence officer. Thank you so much for your time this morning. What do you make of these strikes on the Houthis? Was it always just a matter of, not of when rather than if?
Well, good morning, Sarah. I think the answer is yes. Once the Houthis started consistently targeting shipping, with the effect of cutting the Red Sea route and the Suez Canal effectively off,
it seems that I think the West, particularly the US, have no choice. And of course, the attack the other day, which was directed at essentially at US naval assets, I think in fairness could not have gone answered. The key issue is, of course, what effect will that have had? I think tactically, at the ground level, they will have damaged some Houthi capabilities. But as you saw there in your own report, this itself is not the end of the matter. There's no doubt about that.
And in fact, there's been much concern that the war between Israel and Hamas could spread into a broader regional conflict. Are we seeing the start of that right now?
Yes, I think so. And there's been this creeping escalation up the escalatory ladder, of course, for the last 104 days. And it's very important to remember here, and this again was hinted at in the report before, that the Houthis are extremely closely linked, not only to Iran, but to Hezbollah. And when the representative there, the spokesman, discussed wider retaliation, or be at a much greater level, what we're likely to see, I think, is the involvement either by proxy or indirectly, conceivably, it's unlikely in Lebanon that would happen, of Hezbollah, who've been training the Houthis since 2014, and Iran. It's also important to remember that Saudi were involved in an absolutely brutal war with Yemen since 2016, and indeed the Saudis have a base in Aden, which is one reason I think why they're really trying to de-escalate this. So there's no doubt at all that the potential here for a much greater escalation is present, and far more likely, I think, as a result of the attacks last night and yesterday.
And when we factor in actual capacities into that matrix, just tell us a little bit about the Houthis and their threat of retaliation, because on the face of it, I mean, the Houthis they don't look like much of a match for the U.S.-led coalition. How big of a threat are the Houthis really?
Again, as you say, they're conventionally not much. They have 200,000 people. They have ballistic missiles and drones which can be handled by the coalition quite easily. But that's not really the point. These are not stupid people, and they're extremely, as I said, well connected. And let's just remember now what the political effect might be if one US service person was to be killed by any of these so-called axis of resistance in the near future. And by that I mean not tactical effect, not local effect, but political effect in the US in an election year, with the US getting involved in another armed engagement in the Middle East, the last thing they want. So the potential for this, despite their lack of conventional power, and they will continue to fling missiles, perhaps at the Saudis, perhaps at the US naval coalition, or US-led naval coalition. But that's not the point. The real risk here is what would be the knock-on effect of that politically, were they to inflict casualties on Western forces. And I think that would be very grave. And I think that's the real danger here that the US particularly are trying to avoid, which is why this was described as a sort of one-off response. I don't think it's going to turn out that way, and I think everybody understands that. So it's not so much the conventional capabilities, drones and ballistic missiles. It's what may happen down the escalatory line, which may happen quite quickly.
A bit of a chilling assessment there. Frank Ledvich, Senior Lecturer in Strategic Studies at Portsmouth University and former British military intelligence officer. Thank you for joining us to share that view.
Thank you, sir.
Now, DW correspondent Birgit Maas joins us now from The View from London. Birgit, why has the UK joined the US in launching these strikes?
Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has given a statement overnight, and he said that the Houthi militia have carried out a series of dangerous and destabilizing attacks. And he said these attacks were also exacerbating the humanitarian crisis. But mostly it's about free trade, and it's protecting the shipping. That's really in the center of the statement. We have heard in the last days that one of the largest supermarkets, Tesco's, has warned that there could be much higher prices and even empty shelves as a result of the conflict with the Houthis as a result of these attacks. So the argument of protecting free trade is very much in the center of what the UK government says at the moment.
Talk with us a little bit more about London's calculation and its concern about a wider regional conflict.
Well, of course, a wider regional conflict is on many people's minds when it comes to attacks, and the UK government are saying that those
Okay, na imagine ko mga kababayan na sa aking sarili, kung paralyzed po yung pagawaan po ng langis po diyan sa UK, no? Yung Brent. Okay, Brent oil. Kung ma-paralyze yan, ano kaya ang kalagayan nila mga suki, no? And then sa US, yung Texas. Okay, diyan po ay Texas oil ata yan, no? Okay, pagawaan pa, pag-imbakan po ng langis mo. Paano kaya kung ma-paralyze yan, no? Okay, so yan po ang pinaka-problema po ng daigdig mga suki, no? Okay, kung ma-paralyze yung oil industry nila, okay, tatakbo kaya lahat ng mga kagamitan nila, yung gumagamit ng oil, mga factory, okay, itong mga katulad ng mga ginamit po yung mga armament niyan. Okay, pangpuksa po ng katulad po sa Gaza at saka itong sa Yemen naman, no? So, yan po ang okay, ang nasa isip-isip ko lang mga suki, no? Okay, kung paano po pag ma-paralyze ang Brent, yung imbakan po ng oil sa UK at saka itong imbakan oil po sa Texas. Yan po ay okay, ginawa nila po ng kaya sa pilitan, okay, protektahan po nila ang kanilang interest po sa pamamagitan po ng malakas na okay, armament. Pamuksa po ng mga kababayan natin, kapwa natin, okay, hindi kababayan, no, kapwa natin, yung mga government po ng Yemen mga suki, no? So simple analysis. So yan po ang okay, ginagawa po ng malakas na bansa, yung US at saka itong UK mga kababayan. Can you imagine combination ng yan? And then ang tinitira nila po ay mga hindi naman kalakasan ng bansa, no? Okay? Hindi naman kalakasan ng bansa. Kumpara po sa okay, pwersa ng Amerikano at saka pwersa po ng UK. Ayan. So, yan po ang abangan natin mga suki. Okay, sa mga pamagitan po ng mga news. Okay, para makuha natin mga update po ng kaguluhan po dyan sa Middle East. Okay. So, possible Iran ay titirahin din mga suki mga kababayan, no? Okay, nuna mga yan. Okay, and then ang bansang Iran naman ang titirahin mga suki mga kababayan, no? Ang oras natin kasalukuyan, ano ng oras? Okay? 30 minutos po, pasado alas 7 ang programa natin sa gabi ng ito. Okay, sa ADLSNTV International mga kababayan, no? Okay, hindi na ako nakapokus sa local muna. Tinututukan natin po itong problema po sa Middle East. Okay, para sa kaalaman po ng mga kababayan natin po rito sa Pilipinas. Kasi marami tayo po overseas overseas OFW. Okay, OFW, no? Okay, OFWs sa bansang Middle East mga suki, no? Okay, kawawa po ang mga kababayan natin. Okay, kung lalala. Okay, ang digmaan yan mga suki, mga kababayan, no? So, okay, yung mga kapwa natin sa OFWs, ay ingat kayo. Okay, sa kasalukuyan po ng digmaan yan. Okay, baka madamay kayo. Kailangan may reservation kayo, no? Okay, pagtakas, o kaya lisan, okay, kung lumalala po ang problema yan sa Middle East, no? Okay, kailangan may preventive measure kayo, okay, ginagawa dyan po sa inyong pinagtrabahuan, no? Okay, continue natin. Okay, itong mga balita, ito propaganda war. Okay, pakinggan natin, no? Kahit hindi na tayo maniwala sa mga balita, okay, at least well-informed tayo sa balita, mga suki, no? Okay, mga kababayan natin. Okay. Sige, patuloy natin ito.
Strikes are proportionate and also limited. And the defense minister has said that it's a duty to protect the vessels in the Red Sea. However, we have had some reactions overnight.
So, yun po ang purpose po ng kuan yan, no? Ang mga carrier ng US at saka UK, okay, protection po sa pagdaloy po ng trade. Okay, malaking trade po dyan sa Red Sea. Yan po ang purpose nila, mga suki, na hindi apektado po pagdaloy po ng mga commercial vessel, commercial ship, mga vapor, dyan po dumadaan po sa Red Sea. Ayan. Okay, ito po mga suki, no?
Some opposition politician, one Labour MP, who has tweeted that there is a risk of setting the region alight. And obviously, this is something that Labour and also other politicians want to know more about. They want to actually be able to discuss the crisis and also just assess the risks, the potential risks that these UK and US-led airstrikes could present in the region. So opposition politicians have asked for Parliament to be recalled, for there to be a debate and also a vote on these strikes.
DW's Birgit Mass with the View from London. Thank you.
Okay.
Let's bring in Elizabeth Kendall. She joins me as a Middle East expert at Girton College, part of the University of Cambridge. Do you fear a regional conflict following these strikes?
Yes, I do fear that these strikes could spark a circle of conflict that could fan out into the region. I think we'd be foolish if we didn't think that was a real possibility. And the reason for that is that the Houthis have been at civil war now in Yemen for 9 years. So they are not the kind of group that is deterred by strikes. The Saudi-led coalition launched over 25,000 airstrikes against the Houthis over the last 9 years, and they're still, nominally at least, at war. So I don't think that bodes very well. Meanwhile, our own record in the Middle East has not looked so great, and the Houthis are aware of that. The US withdrew rather ignominiously from Afghanistan. We were not that successful in Iraq. So they're full of confidence. And it's not at all clear that some targeted strikes by the US and the UK and partners could hold them back.
But, put it into the context for us, because how big a threat are they really? Can they really stand up to a US-led coalition?
It's easy to underestimate the Houthis. Now, if the US were to unleash all of its military might against the Houthis, no, they would not be able to stand up to that. But that would result in a full, all-out regional war, no doubt. Don't forget that what the Houthis have been doing in the Red Sea is extremely irritating and expensive for us in the West and beyond. But inside Yemen and more broadly in the Arab world, it's actually quite popular because the Houthis have framed themselves as the defender of Palestine, and no one else seems to be defending the Palestinians. So unleashing our military might against the Houthis would not be popular around the Arab world.
The Houthis in Yemen, similar to Hezbollah in Lebanon, are backed by Iran. Through that lens, how do you see Tehran reacting to these strikes?
It's quite possible that Tehran will unleash more of its so-called axis of resistance. And so far, it's been fairly restrained in how it's dealt with those partners. But it's worth remembering that Israel is entirely encircled by Iran's axis of resistance. We've got, the Houthis here in the south, in Yemen and in the Red Sea to the south of Israel. We've got Hezbollah in the north, in Lebanon. We've got Iran-backed Shias in the east and in the northeast. So and of course Hamas in the west. So it really could look quite bad for Israel if things do spiral into all-out conflict.
Take us to Yemen specifically. I mean, this is a country already devastated by years of civil war. How could an escalation with the United States and its partners and allies impact this country and its civilians?
it is a country that's been ravaged by civil war already. And as I said, airstrikes by the Saudi coalition, over 25,000 of them, have already pummeled the areas controlled by the Houthis. But the problem now is that the Houthis have entered into an agreement with their warring partners inside Yemen, something that was announced by the United Nations Special Envoy just before Christmas, that provides a roadmap to potentially a Yemeni political process which might lead to peace. If we now add Western airstrikes and the outlawing of the Houthis into the mix, then that could jeopardize that process, and that will have knock-on effects around Yemen. So I think, just to sum up, I think it would be unwise to underestimate the Houthis. They've been at war now on-off for nearly 20 years, 9 of them in a civil war. They haven't given up, and they operate by a very different logic from ours. They believe that they've got God on their side, they're highly confident, and they are highly tolerant of a great number of casualties on their side in a way that we wouldn't be. So this is a dangerous moment.
Elizabeth Kendall from the University of Cambridge. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, wala na? Okay, wala na. Break muna tayo, no? Okay, so aware tayo ang nangyayari po, okay, dyan po sa Yemen, mga kababayan, capital ng Sanaa. Ayan. Okay, ang oras natin 39 minutos. Okay, pasado na po alas 7 mga kababayan. No? Tingnan ko natin ang ang susunod na balita natin sa gabing ito, no? Okay, magkakaroon naman sa Middle East ang Philippine Stock Exchange Index ay umabot po sa forecast na ito. Okay, umabot po ng 7,000 level po mga kababayan. Ibig sabihin, marami pa rin maglagay ng pera po sa stocks market mga suki, no? Okay, basahin po natin ang balita ito. Okay, kapakanan po ng mga magnegosyo. Okay, sa stock market, no? Kasama na ako kahit maliit lang sa akin. Okay, kasama ko rito mga suki. Okay, maglakas loob. Okay, magnegosyo po sa stock market, no? Okay, kahit barya-barya lang sa akin, okay lang. Importante ay kasali ako rito mga suki, no? Malay mo lumaki. Okay. Katulad kay Warren Buffett mga suki, no? Mag-start ng maliit, pero ngayon tingnan mo. Ayan. Okay, Manila, Philippines, the Philippine Stock Exchange Index is set for recovery as it is expected to hit 7,000 to 7,500 level, okay, by the fourth quarter of this year, according to the First Metro Investment Corporation, no? Ayan. So, kayo may pera, okay, yung mga may natira pa bonus, okay, ng 13 months, okay, try po ang stock market, no? Maganda. Okay, maganda po. Okay. So, maganda po. Okay, basta magsabi ako maganda, maganda. Ayan. Kailangan lakas loob lang, no? Okay, lakas loob talaga. Kasi risk po ang magnegosyo rito, no? Pero kung malakas ang loob mo, madunong ka mag-analyze, okay, hindi mo problema, no? Okay, the capital market, the much-awaited policy pivot along with a slowdown in inflation is poised, okay, to entice debt issuer back into the market, okay, capitalizing on reduced borrowing costs, FMIC said. Ayan po mga suki, no? This position, these positive factors, ulitin ko, no? Hindi position. These positive factors include improving investor sentiment, easing equity risk, okay, premium arising from the declining of inflation and interest rate, and resilient double-digit corporate earnings. Naku, double-digit po ang kita, no? Kaya nga pala itong mga stocks itong atin ay from barya-baril lang, and then tumaas-taas po mga suki, no? Ang stock investment natin. Okay, so dapat abot yun sa goal ko. May goal ako, dapat abot ako doon mga suki, mga kababayan, no? Okay, may goal ako dyan na abutin ko mga suki, no? Ayan. Goal po pag-invest dito, no? Okay, in a presentation yesterday, FMIC, nakaligtaan ko, no? Okay. Balikan ko itong nakaligtaan ko, no? It is expected to hit 70,000 level to 7,500, supported by earning per share growth of 11% at the price earning ratio range of a 12.6, okay, 12.6 to 13, 12.6x to 12 to 13 13.6x. Anong ibig sabihin ng x? Times? Okay, di ko maintindihan. Bago naman ito nga dapat i-explain po ng magagaling, no? Okay, sa stock market. Di ko maintindihan itong 12.6x to 13.6x. Bago, no? Okay. FMIC said in a presentation yesterday, FMIC head of research, Christina Ulang. Okay, Christina Ulang said the market would move up in the first quarter, but would likely decline against the second quarter because of the El Nino weather disturbance. Okay, yan po mga suki, no? Okay, La Nina ba o El Nino? Okay, pakipaliwanag weather station, no? Ang pagkalam ko, La Nina. Dito po sa report ito, El Nino. Ayan. So, gusto natin makalaro, no? Okay, second quarter ay medyo decline daw. Sabi po ni Christina Ulang, no? Okay, so pag second quarter, January, February, March, okay? Pag January, February, March, and then April, May, June, second quarter, medyo Okay, medyo bawas-bawasan, no? Okay. Pag hindi maganda po ang dating. Okay, first quarter, full blast. And then pag second quarter ay okay, sa sideline and then tingin-tingin po ng kung anong situation ng market, no? Ibig sabihin. Okay, by the third quarter, the Philippine Stock Exchange Index is expected to climb against ahead of the expected policy rate cuts of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas and then onward okay, to 7,000 to 7,500 level by the fourth quarter of 2024, no? So, yan ang mga forecast po ng mag-analyze po sa stock market, mga suki, mga kababayan, no? Okay. Kaya ikaw, pag magkukuhan ka rito, ay kailangan sumusunod ka sa mga advice nila, no? Pag fourth quarter, okay, November, October, November, December, okay, magpuno ka naman. Okay, magdaglag ka na. Okay. So, yan po ang balita, no? On the equity side, the potential easing of bond yield should boost, okay, the attractiveness of the stock market, encouraging issuer, okay, to consider equity issuance as a valuable alternative, okay, for capital raising FMIC send. Ayan po mga suki, no? O nakita ko po si Benjamin Jock, no? Okay, pa-exit na pala sa administration ng okay, Marcos administration, no? Okay, papalitan daw siya. Okay, nakahanda po sa kanyang okay, LinkedIn ba 'yan? Okay, may post sa LinkedIn. Okay, itong si professor ng UP. Okay, si Benjamin Jock na mga suki, no? Okay, possible po papalitan po ng okay, ng recto. Okay, si recto po mga suki. Ralph Recto, no? Okay, sayang po mga suki. Okay, itong magaling na sekretaryo ng finance mga suki, no? Okay, bakit kaya pinapalitan? Bigla pagpapalit, no? Okay. Ano hindi pagkasunduan po mga suki? Ayan po si Benjamin Jock na po, magaling na magbilang ng figure. Okay, mga suki, no? Ayan. Okay. So, yan po, decision po ng Pangulo. Okay, ilagay si recto po dyan, mga okay. Ilagay po sa Department of Finance, no? Ayan. Okay, bakit? Okay, wait. Bakit si Jock ng mga suki, no? Ayan. Parang ako'y magdududa mga suki, no? Ayan. Sana yung mga katang isip ko, okay, hindi po ako magkamali mga suki, no? Oh. Okay, kung sino po magaling, yan pa po inalis, no? Ayan. Okay, ganun talaga. Okay. Sandali lang mga kababayan, i-break muna natin. Okay, basahin po natin last balita natin ito. Okay, sa gabing ito. Okay, overtime na weekend balita, no? Ang Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas sent to a state rate cut in August 2024. Basahin po natin na magkano po 100%. Okay, 100 BSP. Okay. Manila, Philippines, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas will start slashing interest rate in August this year until the first quarter of 2025 after keeping key rates elevated for a longer period of a time. Okay, Nomura Global Market Research said. Okay, in a commentary titled Philippine continuing to signal patient with a policy pivot. Okay, Nomura said, inflation unlikely to stay within the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas 2/4% range before July, which will likely prompt monetary authorities to maintain higher for longer interest rate. So August pa, no? Okay, August pa. January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August. 8 months pa. Okay. Bago po malasap natin, okay, ang pagbawas ng interest rate. Ayan. Okay, they remain consistent with our view that the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas will exercise patience and the pivot. In its pivot. Okay, we therefore reiterate our forecast for Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas to start cutting only in August and deliver a total of 150 BP in rate cuts, no? So 150 BP in rate cuts to 5%, okay, through first quarter of 2025. Nomura said, no? The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas emerged as the most aggressive central bank in the region after hiking key policy rate by 450 basis points, okay, since May 2022 to tame inflation and stabilize the peso, no? Ayan. Okay. Sige, continue natin ang balita, no? Okay. Ayan. Okay, in 2023 alone, the central bank raised interest rate by 100 basis points, okay, bringing the benchmark rate to a 16-year high of a 6.5% from an all-time low of a 2% during the length of the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, headline inflation breached the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas target, okay, for the second straight year as it accelerated to 6% in 2023 from 5.8% in 2022 due to restoring oil and food prices. So, yan po mga kadahilanan po mga suki, no? Ayan. So, ayan. Okay, the tightening cycle helped time inflation to a 22 months low of a 3.9% in December, the first time in 20 months that it is within 2 to 4% target range from a 14-year high of 8.7% in January 2023. No? Okay, may dagdag pa ba ito? Okay, meron pa. Despite keeping interest rate already in November and December, Nomura said, okay, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas tone remained relatively hawkish. Okay, repeating its assessment, okay, that the balance of inflation risk still leans, okay, significantly toward the upside and indicating the need for the monetary stance to remain sufficient tight to allow inflation expectation to settle more firmly. Ayan po mga suki, no? Mga tatlong paragraph na lang. Okay. And then, while inflation returned to target area, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas forecast of a quarter 3 to 2024, we do not see an immediate impact on monetary policy given, okay, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas remain cautious of upside inflation risk and remain hawkish, it said. No? Reiterating its last policy statement, Nomura added that the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas highlighted in the Consumer Price Index, CPI, okay, release the need to keep policy setting sufficiently, okay, tight, despite saying inflation will likely moderate, okay, in the near term. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas has remained a tight monetary policy to the higher interest rate to constrict spending that has been accelerating quickly, okay, or to curb inflation as it has been rising too fast. Okay, yan po ang news po sa mga kalagayan po ng finance natin, no? Okay, nirelease po ng Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. Okay, yan. Okay. At saka itong Philippine Stock Exchange Index, no? Okay, so wala na kong oras, overtime naman. Okay, nakakonsume ako ng 1 oras, 4 na minutos, at saka 28 segundo mga kababayan, no? Tama naman. No? Okay, happy weekend to all. Ayan mga suki, ay okay, babalik tayo ng Monday uli mga kababayan, no? Pero kung may mga magandang balita, kahit bukas mag-news o kahit linggo po. Okay, depende po sa mga balita magsidatingan mga suki, no? Okay, ito na po ang marinig nyo. Paalam tayo, mga tagapagring natin na. Awesome! 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 Okay, sa mga nakikinig sa akin, marami na po mag-convince sa akin dapat ang news ko ito ay digital, complete digital na. Okay, ang problema po ang costing. Okay, yung costing po pag digital natin, mataas mga suki, no? Okay. Baka matulad ako ng iba, after how many days, how many months, eh, wala na akong balita mga suki, no? Yan po ang problema kung mag-full digital. Okay, dahil po sa costing. Okay, sa overhead, mahal po mag-digital, no? Okay, kailangan po may mga IT ka. Okay, mando sa iyo mga suki, no? Okay. Importante boses. Okay, marinig nyo sa akin. Okay, dahan-dahan tayo papasok sa digital, no? Kailangan po maraming laman ng pondo ng corporation. Okay, sobra-sobra. Okay, kahit mag-hire tayo ng mga technical, okay, hindi po apektado ang itong ADLSNTV News Corporation, no? Problema po. Mabuti kung kaya po ang tao mag-volunteer, hindi po kaya. Kailangan magsahod ka. Okay, dito sa Sambuanga po 403 nata ang minimum wage, no? Okay, ng dole. Ayan. So, times mo yan na sa 28 days. Magkano na yan? 403. Mahal po mga suki, no? Okay, yung mga IT, hindi po tatanggap ng ganun lang. Okay, yung mga magaling na IT, kaya katulad po ng mga IT ng Jensen, hindi po na tumanggap ng mga ganun, no? Okay, marami po magagaling sa Jensen, no? Okay, pagdating sa IT. So, magtyaga tayo, kailangan po mga goal natin ma-achieve. Okay, kahit gagastos tayo ng IT, hindi po apektado ang operation ng business na. Ayan, hindi po mawalan tayo ng news. Yun po ay shock absorber natin po sa negosyo mga suki, na. And then dalawang negosyo po pinatakbo. Okay, mind the global food lines at saka ito, kailangan dahan-dahan mga suki, na. Okay, kailangan na talagang may capacity. Okay, kahit magdagdag tayo ng empleyado, hindi po problema mga suki, na. Ayan. Ilan na kami? 1, 2, 3. Okay, kasama na ko 4. Ayan, 5. Okay, 6. 7. Ayan po mag-handle po ng dalawang kumpanya, no? Ayan. So, mabigat yun sa bulsa. Okay, mabigat po sa bulsa. Okay, galing sa bulsa natin. Okay. Kahit na capital yun ng corporation, talagang mabigat mga suki, na. Ayan. Okay, so tapos na ang balita. Sandali lang. Okay, magmula po rito sa Consolidated News natin, pinoproduce po ng ADLSNTV News Corporation, and then pinupondohan po ng Mind the Global Food Lines, mga kababayan. Kaya nga, meron tayo araw-araw na balita, gabi-gabi na balita, no? Yan po mag-back up, okay, ng kumpanya ito mga suki, no? Ayan. So, okay. 13 years na tayo sa broadcast, no? Kung walang stability po itong negosyo, matagal na mag-close. Pero may stability mga suki, no? 13 years na. Okay. Sa himpapawid. Ibig sabihin, talagang pinagplanuhan ng maigi, no? Ayan. Hindi po pabigla-biglang pagdesisyon. Lalo po sa negosyo, no? Ayan. Okay, dito po sa programa Halo-Halo Special, Opinion, Balita at iba pa. Kasama po serbisyo publiko, tinig ng mamamayan. And then, sumbungan ng mamamayan, no? Sa unang balita natin, yung Big Bang po sa Sanaa, Yemen, no? 60 raw ang ang pinasabog okay diyan sa South Yemen, no? Okay, expectation niya may retaliation yan mga suki, no? Okay, ganon. So, yan po ang balita po. Mga alas 2 pasado po, ng madaling araw po, tinira sila. Ayan. Combination po ng, inamin na ng Joe Biden, President Joe Biden, at saka itong Ricky Sunak, na. Okay, sila po ang makatake dyan sa bansang Yemen. Bansang Yemen, na. Okay. Okay, pagkatapos dito mag-close tayo ng balita. Happy weekend na lang sa inyo mga tagapakinig natin, no? Yung hindi po bumitaw sa lahat ng programa ko, no? Both local, regional, national, at saka international naniwala sa atin, no? Okay. Ang nagtataka ko, no? Okay, paano naintindihan niya ng mga news ko? Pero may English naman, no? English ang news ko. Pero yung mga komentaryo ko ay Pilipino mga suki. Para kaya kung mag-hire sila ng mga nang mag-translate sa kanila, no? Ayan, kung ano sinasabi ko rito sa news ko. Ayan. Sige. Okay, my account, my news content. Okay, you can pay me by electronic payment, no? Okay, like email. Okay, e-commerce. Okay, you can pay me, no? Oh, to all my international client. No worry, you can pay me. Okay, through e-commerce. Okay, this company. Okay, has produce apps of e-commerce mga suki, no? Okay. So I tried to communicate you, no? Okay, for the collection of this corporation. Okay. Yung talent fee ba? Ayan po, no? Okay, hindi na tayo mag-focus sa local. Okay. Yung mga sa local, manlolokal ang mga suki, mga kababayan, na. Hindi na. Focus na lang tayo sa sa mga international client, mga suki, no? Okay, yung mga local, manloloko lang. Okay. Sige lang. Okay, salamat. Wala tayong masamang tinapay dito sa programa natin. Okay, babalik tayo by Monday. Kung walang magandang balita bukas at saka Sunday, Monday tayo babalik, no? Okay, happy weekend to all. And then, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, no? Sa lahat, magmamahal po dito sa programa. Walang puknat, walang tigil, sa paghatid ng balita, no? Okay, yung mga local, wala. Okay. Manloloko lang. Okay. Sige po. Okay, this has been Absdamahan lamang sa weekend balita. Babalik tayo, no? Okay, Monday na, morning. Inshallah.